What's up, everybody, and welcome to my channel. I'm just a guy who loves the lions, and I also love to fish. I try to fish as much as I can, and when I do, I try to share my experiences and what I learn. So if you enjoy fishing as much as I do, and you want to learn something, go ahead and give me a follow, because my whole adventure I try to put online to share. And I always am trying to learn new things too. So if you have any tips or comments, throw them at me. I'm here for them. So one of the biggest problems that I have, and I'm sure you guys have experienced it too, is I finally get a day off. I finally get some time to go fishing. And when I go out, it's super windy. And it seems next to impossible to catch a fish. These times can be very frustrating. You know, I get a day off and I just want to catch some fish, man, but this dang wind is making it hard. So over the years, you know, I've had my struggles where I've went out and I have not caught anything at all. And it has been very frustrating. I've seen how people were catching fish in these scenarios, and I've been able to, you know, take some of that and apply it, and I've had success. Now, one of the most important things that I've found when fishing in the wind is trying to keep your bait right in that strike zone, which can be very difficult. I think if you use too heavy of a weight, you're going to be below it. And if you're using too light, the wind's just going to take it away. So how do you find that right depth? How do you get your bait to a place where the fish can see it and actively try to eat it? Well, choosing the right size jig head definitely is a major thing that you can do. If you're trolling or something like that, I would try going with like maybe I use crappie lures. I use an 1/8 ounce jig when it gets really windy. That's probably about the highest I'll go, depending on how deep my lake is. I'd like to note that the max depth of the lakes I fish at is anywhere from 30 to 40 feet. If I was certainly fishing deeper waters, I would probably use a much bigger weight, which I do have. I just don't find me using them very often because I fish off a kayak. Another one of the big things that I use that really help me is slip bobbers. Slip bobbers allow your bait to go to a certain depth and sit under a bobber and move very slowly through the water column. Now with a slip bobber, you can actually use that to your advantage because the current from the wind, and it's going to make the action to your lure, and it's going to do all the work for you. All you have to do is cast it out. It is important to note that the right depth on the slip bobber is also a key, you know, in maximizing your potential in catching fish. So if I know I'm in about 10 feet of water and I want that bait near the bottom, I'm going to set my slip bobber at 9 feet. If I'm in 15 feet of water and I notice schools of fish around 8 feet, I'm going to set that depth at 8 feet. Another thing you can do is use buoy markers. The buoy markers are awesome because you can put them in a spot and you can anchor down by that spot, and you're going to know where those fish are. So you can continuously cast in that same position, you know, or use your slip bobber by them and know that you're where the fish actually are. It's pretty incredible. If you haven't used a buoy marker and you're in a kayak and the wind, you're going to be very surprised at how far the wind can push you without you even realizing it. I think the cool thing about the buoy marker is it helps me identify where the fish are, and I can stay there as long as possible to try and catch fish. How do I identify fish with the buoy marker? Well, I go based off my fish finder. If I didn't have a fish finder, if I was trolling along or I caught a fish, I would instantly drop that buoy marker where I'm at so I know where I caught that fish at, because 9 times out of 10, if you catch one fish, there's going to be more where you're at. I do want to thank you guys for sticking along with me today. I hope you can bring something to your arsenal to help you catch more fish. I know I'm just sharing my experiences, but if you guys have tips for me, throw them at me, because I constantly love trying new things. I'm trying to get better every day. This is a fun adventure. It's my favorite hobby of all time, aside from the lions, of course. So, you know, I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you so much. You guys have a great day. See, I'm going out today, and it is one windy day. I'm out here on the lake, and you can see the water. It's got a strong current from that wind. So I it's trying to get out there, trying to catch fish in the most effective way possible. Casting out, I know my lure's not where I need it to be. I'm struggling. I want to get out there and I want to catch some fish. So I'm gonna use these tricks, these tools. So a major tool you can use is an anchor. Fishing from a kayak, that wind's gonna dominate you. So you can anchor down in a spot where there's a lot of fish, and you can use that to your advantage. You're not gonna get pushed around. I use a 5-pound anchor, with a 30-foot rope. I'm not in super deep water, so I'm able to use this from my kayak. I have a link in the description of the exact anchor that I purchased and I'm using. It's not too bad. It's like $25, and it works great. It's got a little buoy on the top to, in case I got detached, I'm going to be able to find that anchor. So it works really well. Also, what I use on my kayak to help anchor down is I use an anchor trolley. It connects to the front of your kayak all the way to the back by a rope, and you have a little part on there that you can tie your anchor onto, and you can move it to the front or the back. The advantages of this, if you're with the current, if you have that anchor pegged at the front, you're going to be facing towards the current, so you can cast out and your bait's going to come back to you. That way, I don't know if any of you guys have ever tried, but if you're anchored down, you're trying to cast sideways, you're going to have a heck of a problem. It doesn't work. It can get really frustrating at times, especially when you're trying to get your lure where you want it to be. So that's why I highly recommend this anchor trolley, and I have that in the description too. It's not too pricey. These couple tools, they're pretty basic. You always want to be safe when using them, but as you can see here, I'm going to start out with the slip bobber, and that's what it looks like in the water. It's just floating along. That slip bobber's up there, and as soon as it goes down, I know I got a bite, and that's when I need to attack. But yeah, as you can see, it is pretty windy. I'm showing you, look at where I'm facing. See the tree line, the tip of my kayak? See how fast I'm getting turned by the wind just trying to fish? That can get really frustrating. And then you can see my line, it's pulling my bait to where, I'm like, man, even if I feel a bite, I don't know if I'm going to really feel it. So I got bit, and I just waited too long, and it came off. It was getting frustrating. So I switched to the slip bobber. I have 2 jigs on there. I use them with loop knots, but I'm just going to cast it out. I have it at about 8 feet deep. I know I'm in 12 feet of water, and a lot of those fish, they're either on bottom or they're, a couple feet up on top of brush, grass, sticks, trees, like rock, like anything down there. I know they're towards the bottom, and it's going to be difficult to get down there with the jig, just without the slip bobber anyway. But as you can see here, I just have that bobber waiting. But this is the knot I use to tie my jigs on. It's a loop knot. What that does, it allows my jig to stay in the water buoyant. So it's going to sit horizontal. That jig's not going to get slid down. It's not going to look all weird. It's going to look more natural because that tension of the knot's not going to be directly on the jig head. It's just going to be floating. And I mean, if you're going to use a slip bobber, this is 100% the way to go. It's going to increase your percentage in catching fish. It straight up works. It works so well. But I use a base of 10-pound braid to a swivel to 4-pound mono, and I tie my bobber stop onto my braid because it just doesn't slide. I've used mono before, and that bobber stop goes up, it goes down, it goes all over the place. It can get really frustrating. So I found that braid backing, or just your mainline braid to a mono leader, it's the most effective way to use a bobber stop. I can still use that light line. That braid has very, very low diameter, so it's actually even smaller than mono. and for whatever reason, I think just the material Braid's made out of, it's more resistant to slipping, because that can be a problem when it's going through your guides. But as you can see here, this bait was just sitting in the water doing its thing. That current was giving it action, and I got hooked up. You know, it took a little bit of time, but it really wasn't that long. I just threw it in a high probability place, and I got bit. I saw my bobber just disappear. It was gone. So I hooked it, set the hook, got it in, you know, and I'm like, I can't really complain. It's a super windy day. No one out here is catching fish, and I'm over here and I'm pulling them in. You know, I was anchored down, had my slip bobber down. I know the depth, and look at that, a nice bass. Got him hooked up right in the top of the mouth. You know, and sometimes with these nets, you know, those jigs can get stuck. It's a pain in the butt. But I was pumped. You know, I'm like, I'm out here, it's super windy, current strong. You know, I just want to catch some fish, man. I'm out here, you know, I want to use my time, and I want to catch some fish, because, you know, it's still fun to go out and fish, but when you're catching them, man, it makes it all the better. But yeah, as you can see, that's a nice bass. You know, he's got some shoulders on him, as you can see. He was nice and thick. You know, it's a good fight, but you know, that's a decent bass on that little crappie magnet under the slip bobber. You know, you can't beat it. It works. It's proven. So, you know, I got him. You know, he was a good fight, you know, but couldn't resist that natural looking lure under that slip bobber. Really makes a ginormous difference, you know. So I highly recommend giving slip bobbers a try if you're out there and, you know, you want to catch fish in the wind. I highly suggest those. But now I'm going to talk about this marker buoy. Marker buoy's a weight that's got a line on it all the way to the middle, and the weight goes all the way to the bottom, keeping the buoy in place. As you can see, I just dropped it down. I marked a bunch of fish on my fish finder. You can either do that, or if you see if you caught a fish, you know, because the probability if there's more there is high, you could drop it there. You know, that would work. So I marked an area, but look at how long it took, and look at how far away I'm already from that marker buoy. This wind is pushing me away, but I know that spot where the fish are. I marked them. I know where they're at. And you see, if you're just free fishing it, you know, you're like, oh, I caught a fish, I'm in that general area. You probably aren't. That wind's gonna push you away so fast, you know, and you're not even gonna realize it. So I highly suggest get that marker buoy down and just anchor down, so that way you know where the fish are. You're anchoring down. You know, you're gonna be able to stay in that zone where those fish are, and, you know, increase your chances of catching more fish. So I'm anchoring down, and as you can see, I'm tying it to the anchor trolley so that it stays in place, and it's not going to go anywhere. It's stuck. You know, I can sit here and move this this knot to the front of my boat, and that way I'm not moving anywhere. I'm moving with the wind. I know where my marker buoy is, and I'm going to be able to stay in a location close to that strike zone. That is my goal. Just trying to maximize any possibility I can have, and it just works. So here I am. I got the slip bobber out. I'm like, okay, I know these fish are at like 10 feet deep, and I'm gonna cast this bad boy out here, and I'm just gonna let it do its magic. So that bobber's out there. It's sitting there. It's got those jigs down there. The wind's just making that action for me. Sitting there, it's got action with the wind. It's doing its thing, and I'm keeping it in the strike zone, which is extremely important. You know, I want to be able to catch those fish. I gotta keep it in high probability areas. So right now I'm just letting it sit, letting it ride. You know, I'm just kind of probably daydreaming at this point, but keeping an eye on that bobber. You know, so you can always, like I just did, you can wiggle it to give a little bit more action to it. I feel that, you know, sometimes if it's just chilling there, just moving around slowly, that little flicker from that action might just entice the fish to come and just try to nab it. So that's always that's always a thing you can do there. But I wouldn't want to do too much, because you know that wind is doing a lot of that action for you. So you don't want to go too crazy with it. I would speak against that. That's not the way you want to go with it. So I got it down there, letting it sit there, shaking my rod just a little bit here and there, just to let them know, like, hey, you know, you can bite me, I'm alive. And it's just kind of floating through the strike zone. So fish can be a little skittish in times like this. So the key thing is to be patient. You cannot go too slow with this method. You can go too fast, but you're not going to go too slow. So that's a very important thing to remember, that if you're using this method in the wind and you want to catch fish, you want to go as slow as you can. So think about sitting there and you're watching it and you think you're not going slow enough, you know, or you think you're going too fast, you know, you're like, man, it's been there for a while. Go slower. Slow it down. Let it flow all the way back to you if you need to. It's keeping it in that zone. That is so important. You know, the pressure, the barometric pressure, all these different factors are going to affect the fish's behavior. So you want to keep it down there as long as possible, and they will bite it. Sometimes it takes more time, but sometimes it doesn't. So I felt a little nibble going on, and you know, here I am. I hooked up. It's fighting me good, and I get it in, and it's a nice crappie. Was able to hook up with them, kept them in that strike zone, and I was fortunate enough to hook up, you know, using my tools. My marker buoy's out there. I know the fish are out there. I'm anchored down. I'm sitting there. I got my slip bobber. I have all the things set up for me to be successful in this fishing trip, and I'm using my tools to my advantage. It is so important to go slow when you do this stuff, guys. I can't stress it enough. So, you know, I got this crappie here. He's a decent size. I mean, these crappie, they really just have the coolest patterns and colors on them. They really do, and they eat so good. And, you know, you really can't beat it. So, all right, guys. I got in the description. I got the slip bobbers. I got the anchors. I got the anchor trolleys. I got the marker buoys. I'm using all these tools, and I got them all linked in the description for y'all. So you guys, you can just check them out, and you can use these, buy these, and they're not very pricey. You know, pretty affordable stuff. But if you're able to, I would get them and, you know, practice with them a little bit. But they're gonna greatly help you. They're gonna give you an advantage. You're gonna see guys going out not catching fish, and you're gonna go out there and you're gonna pull fish in. They're gonna come to you and be like, "Hey man, what are you doing? How are you pulling these fish in? It's tough out here." And it's a lot of fun. You can't beat it. It's always cool adding new stuff. But hey, if you stuck around this far, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Leave a comment if you have any questions. Like if you like the video. And hey guys, I'll see you next time. Thank you so much. Take care.